Hello.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, good, good.
Yes,
Um,
just like normal.
oh, that's good. Sorry.
Have you changed something? Or are you testing some new equipment?
No, I'm just like I've got a thing minimized on my phone, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna affect um
Oh, no, yeah,
when
no,
I
that works. Yeah, is it
yeah,
like a little floating bubble now?
yeah,
Yeah, I have that on mine all the time.
yeah, okay. I'm just, as you know, I'm not very technical, so I'm just
No,
trying to
you've got to play around it. I didn't know at first. It was new to me when I first saw it, and I thought, oh, what does that do? So I pressed it, and I was like, oh,
easily pleased.
yes. Oh,
Mm.
it does that. Oh, that's good. But what it means is when you minimize it into that floating bubble,
Mm,
whilst I'm doing it now, so what I'm doing now is I've minimised the show to this floating bubble. I'm now scrolling through the post that you've put up on the group
oh, right, yeah,
station group,
yeah.
and then obviously then that way if people post messages
Mm,
on the group, you can read them whilst doing the show.
right. Multitasking.
Yes, that's why it
Brilliant.
was such. Ooh, he does that.
Yeah, brilliant.
So
Yeah,
it's quite a useful feature.
yeah, it's a good idea. And it's just one of those things that you get used to, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And also, what you can do is you can navigate. Obviously, now it's a bubble, floating little bubble. You can navigate away from Telegram as well. So you
Mm,
can be going on and you can be doing something completely different on your
yes.
phone whilst doing the show at the same time.
Mm. Juggling, cooking tea.
Yes. So even from a listener's perspective, so if I was listening to the show now, I could be going checking my emails whilst listening. I could be going looking at the whatever social medias I'm on, if I'm on any, which I'm not. I'm on the Telegram. But you can be in the weather whilst listening to the show.
Brilliant.
So it's a lovely feature, but I don't think, like yourself and like me, you don't realise that it can do that until you press that little thing,
Yeah, like
and
no.
you have that ooh moment. It does that.
Yeah, yeah. It's usually a happy accident when I find out things like this.
Yeah, I've always sort of been like the. I wonder what that button does. What happens when I press that?
Yeah, yeah. I've
So
been
that's how you find things out, just by playing around and experimenting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've sort of like I've got notes all over the place today, so I feel a bit disorganized, but also yeah, I've got things that I want to find while I'm talking as well. But I know people don't mind if I'm all over the place. It's just how it is.
No, it is exactly. It is. That's exactly how it is. So yeah,
Have you
don't worry about it.
have you had a good week, Andy?
Oh, it's been a nice, lovely week. We've had some lovely hot weather.
Mm.
I've got loads done. I'm moving my solar panel. I've now experimented with it and I'm happy with it. So I'm going to now move it into a higher location, and hopefully it'll be better for the winter period.
Oh,
Catch
brilliant.
more sun. So I'm in the process of moving that. I should finish that tomorrow. What else have I been up to this week? My honey girls come up trumps. I've got 1.5 litres of raw local honey that
Wow.
she dropped off earlier this week. I've picked up a few smaller jars today. So I've got them off for today, and she's going to have some more ready next week. So I'm like, buzzing, bring on
Mm.
the honey.
Yeah. How lovely is that? And have you got allergies? Have you got hay fever or anything like that? Because it's supposed to
No,
be good, isn't it,
no,
if you get
no,
it
not at
local?
all. What I
Yeah.
do with mine, on the whole, the little jars I just give away as gifts to friends and family and neighbours.
Mm.
And I just give them, here's a jar of honey. But for me personally, the 1.5 litre jar, the Kilner jar that she's filled for, what I will do with that is I will get two 1 litre Kilner jars, fill it with garlic in the bottom, maybe 5 or 6 cloves of garlic or bulbs, I don't know which way around it is. But yeah, 5 big lots of garlic, pour the honey up, top it up till it's near the top, about an inch off, seal it up, and then just leave it for 3 months while the garlic infuses and gets into the honey. Release the pressure every day with a little, just lift the lid off the kilner jar and then seal it back down just so the pressure is gone. But leave it to infuse for about 3 months, and that's the best flu remedy in the world.
I can imagine it is, yeah. Amazing.
Once it's ready and the allicin from the garlic has seeped out and into the honey, you just have a spoonful of the honey every morning then during winter, and you don't need a flu jab.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get that on prescription, are you?
Absolutely not. No. You keep sending me text messages as well. Will you get your flu jab now?
No, thank you.
I don't want it, thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the time. It's already 2 minutes past 6.
Oh, God.
Joyce has joined as well.
Yeah. Hi, Joyce. Right. I'll sort what's its name out.
Are you going to start the recording and give the title?
I will do, yeah.
Human suffering.
Yeah, it's
Christians and Buddhists have that in common, don't they?
Totally. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to mute myself and I'll leave you to
Okay.
have a great show, Jen.
All right, thank you. Hello, this is Jenny Luscombe, and this is episode 9 of Feeling is Healing. So today we're going to be talking about human suffering, which is not light entertainment, but it is something that is happening to many, many people at the moment. Lots of people around me, lots of my clients, I think the world in general. So before I get into that, I'm just going to give a bit of background about me, which I don't always do, but I will today. So I have got a background in psychology and education, and I worked in the systems for most of my working life. I said that as if I'm not working anymore, which I am. So I run a healing business now. But in my working life, I worked in the corporate world. I worked in banking. I was also a primary school teacher for 10 years. I was a reading recovery specialist working with dyslexic children. I was also an adult educator. I taught asylum seekers and foreign students, teaching TEFL. I was also an kind of like an occupational therapist. I was an employment advisor and facilitator for people that had the schizophrenia diagnosis. So that was a job that I did working for the NHS. So that was getting people working who were recovering from severe and enduring mental health problems. So as a result of all of this, I've sort of been around the block a few times, and I now know what not to do. And I now know more how to help people as a result of seeing a boatload of how not to help people. So when I was a kid, I experienced a huge amount of abuse of all different kinds, mainly emotional abuse and kind of gaslighting, which was normalized in a Catholic middle-class home. I'm also, like many of us on the spiritual path, the family scapegoat, the black sheep, the one that spoke the truth out loud, the one that got away. And I've lived with PTSD symptoms for the majority of my life, anxiety disorder, postnatal depression symptoms, chronic physical pain. In my 30s, I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, really. And I experienced a weird thing that I don't really understand still to this day. I kind of do, but it was like a spontaneous awakening experience where I started to surface spontaneously like a whole onslaught of suppressed memory that I didn't know that I had previous to that. So before I was even 40, my GP told me that I would have the chronic pain that I'm suffering from forever, and that there was nothing that they could do about that, and that it was all downhill I was never going to get better from that, so they said. But I now am in my 50s and I don't have any pain in my body. I don't consider myself to have PTSD anymore. I've self-healed all of it, all of it. So I kind of like accidentally got into the healing path and sort of working as a healer myself. I started to use EFT tapping, and after that, that kind of led to other modalities like the emotion code and the body code and quantum healing and the gene keys, which I'll talk a bit about later. I've always been drawn to healing modalities that people can access themselves, where there's no guru apart from yourself. So when I set off on this path, I started to have profound shifts of consciousness, and I couldn't understand why these processes, at the time I was just using EFT tapping, couldn't understand why it wasn't taught in schools, in hospitals, in prisons. But I did eventually realize that these processes had been suppressed in favor of the pharmaceutical industry and basically the promotion of disempowerment and limitation, which we're all subject to in some way or another. So it kind of lined up, when I realized that, it kind of lined up with what I'd seen in education and what I'd seen in mental health services as well, to be honest. So I'd seen that approach, disempowerment, bullying, limitation, kind of imposed on people that were already struggling. And it seems that this is where we are now in the world, and people are becoming more and more aware of that. So I've basically, for the last 12 years, been making sense of what the F happened and what is really going on. I think that I've probably been, like many of us, probably been awake most of my life, although I've only just started to sort of get that. But I've always been a seeker, and I've always been looking under the floorboards to figure out what's really going on. I mean, I actually think that all the unresolved issues in the world, whether they're personal, interpersonal, global, whatever it is, I think that everything has an emotional root caused by trauma and limiting belief. So it's basically my sole mission to introduce to as many people as possible the information and the skills that they need to get out of victim mentality and into self-empowerment. And I truly believe that we already have everything we need. We just need to be pointed in the right direction. And it's okay to ask for help, but all we need is actually within us by design. We just need to look inside of ourselves instead of in the external. And we are the ones that we're waiting for. I think we are actually the creator, all of us. So there's quite a lot that I want to say today, but I want to sort of throw it out there to anybody that's wants to join on the live. So yeah, so human suffering, gosh, here we are. So I'm really interested by how religion has disempowered us. And I was raised as a Catholic, and I always kind of felt that out of all of the religions, and I think they're all bad, to be honest, I think they've all been designed to keep us putting our power outside of us instead of internal. I always thought that Buddhism had the most going for it, but I even see that as flawed. So if you look into Buddhism, you'll find that desire and wanting is actually made wrong and bad. And they would argue in Buddhism that it is desire and wanting that is the cause of suffering. Now, I think that is bonkers, because I actually think that desire and wanting is the result of suffering. And you can't really get rid of desire. You can't really get rid of wanting. And I do understand the power of disidentifying from things and getting rid of the ego to a certain degree. But if you think about it, what expands the universe? Desire. So what the Buddha was on about is totally beyond me. I don't understand how desire can be a bad thing. It basically motivates us, and it helps us to improve our life. We're always improving whatever it is that we're working on, you know, whether we're working on ourselves, whether we're working on something, a project at work, whatever it is, creatively, we're always improving the way that we do things, and it's evolution. So evolution is expanding the universe. Desire is what does that. So desire and wanting being the cause of suffering, I think, is insanity. I actually think that it is wanting, wanting, and not being able to receive what it is that you're looking for. I think that basically it's the result of suffering. It's kind of like, as my nan would say, it's kind of arse upwards. It's like totally the other way around. I think another thing that accentuates suffering, and I sort of see this a lot with clients, and particularly when I work with young people, and sometimes I work with families around the young person. Sometimes I work with couples, sometimes I work with parents and kids. Like whatever it is, I always find that helping a family know what to do with a person who's suffering accelerates their progress. So I somehow sort of, I don't know how it's happened, but I have ended up working a lot with young people with eating disorders. And I see it particularly around that because obviously it's a control issue and people are trying to control their reality through food. And I've looked really deeply into the causes of this. Actually, I'm finding that education is the cause of that often. Being squished into a box that you don't fit in seems to be at the emotional root of a lot of eating disorder and a lot of addiction as well. But what I've noticed when I ask parents and siblings, you know, how do you interact with your family member that has this problem? I find that they'll come from they mean well, they come from a loving place, but they say things to the person that's suffering with the condition. They'll say things that perpetuate the suffering of that person rather than doing what could help. So they quite often, meaning well, will say things like, "You're okay, you know, don't be silly, you know, you don't need to cry, or you don't need to be like that, or you know, there's no reason to think this, or there's no reason to think that." So what they're doing is invalidating the existing feeling or situation or circumstance of that person. Now, what we all really need when we're suffering is for someone to be with us when we are in our pain. We don't want someone to fix us. We don't want someone to come along and try and change us at all. And it doesn't kind of make sense. It might not even make sense now, sort of as you're listening to this. But when people say, "Oh, there's no need to feel like this," or, you know, "There's nothing bad happening," or there's no need to be like that," or "Don't be silly," or "You're okay." I mean, you hear parents say it to their kids when they fall over and they scratch their knee or whatever. You know, "You're all right," you know, "You don't need to cry." I mean, they're not all right. They're in pain and they do need to cry. So none of what you just said to that kid is going to help. And actually, it's going to make them worse. And you do see that play out over and over again, literally everywhere you look. So I think before I go into what I think is the predominant cause of human suffering, and I've already kind of touched on it, I just want to mention something I've been talking with Tim about this week. Now he is kind of like very plugged into the health service through being a patient himself and having issues that he has found very difficult to resolve, but also as somebody who works for the NHS sometimes in the corporate world. So he actually has quite a lot of insights that I've found really interesting. And he's been telling me that he can see very clearly, and probably many of you can, that the health service is set up for acute problems. So when we go into a crisis, they can be fantastic. So when we go in, like we've broken our leg, they can fix that, they can sort us out. When we go in, we have like you know, some sort of infection or whatever, they'll blast us, they'll exterminate everything in our body with an antibiotic, and then they'll take away our symptom. Fine, okay, yeah, the immediate thing has dissipated or whatever. So they're very set up to assess and treat acute problems. But when it comes to chronic problems, which is where the suffering comes in, because I would argue, you know, you're not really suffering as such when you have an acute problem. You just go in, you get it sorted, hopefully it's over. When you don't find a solution to something and it's an ongoing issue, which everybody seems to have something which is an ongoing issue at the moment, there's actually no care pathway set up or even planned out or even incentivized in the NHS. There's no integrative approach to diagnosing your condition. There's actually no care. There's no provision. The medical industry is not interested at all in looking at your life, looking at your addictions, looking at your relationships, looking at your history, looking at your trauma, looking at your background, looking at your attitudes to life, looking at your beliefs. There's no one there who is interested in doing that because it's too costly, it's too time consuming. There's no training. Medical people are not trained to do that. There's no funding for it. It's basically all set up with the pharmaceutical industry to keep us in our chronic conditions. So, and it's not just the medical industry. The health industry is kind of in bed with the food industry as well. Like if you kind of keep looking under the floorboards, we're being kept stuck in chronic conditions that the health service is not set up for deliberately, so that we remain in suffering, so that we then rely on the pharmaceutical drugs, which also don't really work and are designed to keep us suffering as well. So it's actually in their best interests to keep us suffering. And I'd never really thought about it before Tim mentioned it to me. You know, that it was only really set up for acute conditions and not chronic conditions. But when I sort of look around me in my life, like all the people I know that are suffering from chronic conditions, they all have the same story in common, that they're kind of treated as if they're an irritation to their doctor every time they go in and say, look, I've still got this, and you said it would be gone by now, or try this thing or that thing. And they treat you as if you're an irritation because you have a chronic condition, and you're just making them feel like they're doing a crap job because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do, and they don't care either. So, you know, there's no care on a number of levels. They actually don't care, and there is no care, like there is no provision. And something that I've seen in my life this week is, and I've never done this before, but I'm starting to look under the floorboards into the pet food industry, because my cat, and also kind of prompted by my friend Joyce, who now has a little dog, she mentioned the kibble, like the biscuits, the dry food that we give our animals. I've only just started to sort of switch on to the fact that it's not that good for the animals. So I've always looked at my cat and thought, you know, she's a bit fussy. When she was a kitten, I used to give her the wet food. I used to give her a bit of the biscuity stuff. And then over time, she's kind of like had a sniff at the wet food and then gone, yeah, no thanks. And then she's gone for the biscuits. So I've just thought, okay, I'll just keep giving her that because that's what she seems to like. Now I've started to realize that It's like crack cocaine for cats. And she literally scratched a hole in the bag to try and get some out when I wasn't looking. And, you know, me and my daughter have been like serving up things like salmon and tuna and chicken, trying to give her like real meat. And she doesn't even recognize it as food because they've put something in the food that is very addictive for cats. And I'm sure it's going to shorten her life, like if I keep doing it. So I've started to mix it in with other things. But, you know, Tim kind of validated that, you know, the pet food industry, the health industry, the food industry, they're all working together to keep us in resistance, to keep us stuck, to keep us suffering. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me. And it's not an accident. You know, I'm sure plenty of people would agree with me. So here we are. So why are we suffering and what can we do about it? So obviously, the world is set up to keep us suffering. But I actually think that there is one cause for human suffering, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, interpersonal, circumstantial. One. I don't think it's the difficult circumstances we're in. I don't even think it's the trauma itself. I think it's resistance to the trauma. So it's not the difficult things that are happening in themselves. It's the resistance to the emotion that is occurring as a result of those things happening. So if you're suffering, there's something going on for you which is causing you to not process your emotion. I would argue that you're blocking it. So you're trying not to be in the emotional experience that you are in. If you continue to try not to be in the emotional experience that you are in, then you are actually avoiding reality. And I know this because I tried not to feel things for 35 years and it didn't work out very well for me. So if you're constantly trying not to feel something, you're actually, without realizing what you're doing, constantly focusing on the unwanted thing that you don't want to feel. So just ask yourself, with whatever is going on for you, whatever it is that you're suffering with, so it might be a physical pain, it might be a disease, it might be a circumstance in your life, like your living conditions or a person that you're not getting on with, or whatever it is, just ask yourself, is that what I'm doing? So if you're constantly trying not to feel something, what you're actually doing is constantly focusing on the unwanted thing that you don't want to feel. So you cannot heal something that you are pretending isn't there. If you're pretending it isn't there, or you're using strategies to avoid or deny or reject or suppress it, then all you're going to experience is where you are right now, which is pretending that it isn't there. So this is like a really difficult thing to explain to people. So if you believe in the law of attraction, which is happening, you're going to attract what you are. So you're going to attract what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what's going on in your frequency. So that's going to be from your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. So for example, if you're feeling angry and you're just so angry and you're really angry and you don't know what to do about it, you're just feeling this frustration, this irritation, this anger all the time, and you're not actually able to process it, or you're not actually willing to process it, you kind of do everything you can to not feel that. Now, it's an incredibly difficult emotion to suppress. If you try to suppress it, it's going to get bigger. If you're pretending that it isn't there, you're denying it, rejecting it, then all you're going to experience is where you are right now, which is pretending that it isn't there. So the anger is going to get bigger and it's going to get bigger, and you're going to attract what you are. So nothing can change from that space, nothing. You're kind of stuck in a loop of avoidance. So this is what the systems are doing to us. They're keeping us stuck in a loop. And this is what Luciferian consciousness is. It's about causing you to be in a situation where it feels like you've got no control. So if you're not processing your emotion, then it's highly likely that you're dissatisfied with many, if not all, aspects of your life circumstances, and that you're heading for or already suffering from long-term health conditions, mental and physical. So if you have mental or physical issues that are long-term, that are chronic, that the health service is not set up to deal with intentionally to keep you in suffering, it is because you're not processing your emotion. So there are a lot of possible reasons why that might be happening. So you may believe that there are negative consequences for feeling and expressing your emotion. You may have disconnected from your emotion and you can't feel it because you've been taught to block it out, or it's just too painful for you to kind of go into. You may have tried many therapeutic modalities, but have developed the belief that nothing works for you. Perhaps you can't feel your feelings, maybe because you've got kind of like a numbness that I find in quite a few clients that come to me. So maybe you experience numbness instead of your feelings. So it might be like you're kind of going through the motions, but you can't truly access the emotion because you don't know how, which is not surprising because we haven't been taught this stuff. So you possibly could be not accessing your emotion because you're afraid to do that because you have emotion about the emotion. So it is possible for people to feel shame about the shame, or to feel anger about the shame. It's really, really common. I mean, when you feel shame about the shame, or you feel anger about the shame, or you feel sad about the anger, you know, this is a classic example of what's happened to us. So our parents, when we were kids, they might have kind of poo-pooed our emotion, told us that we shouldn't feel something because that's not what boys do, or you know, it's unacceptable, or it's, you know, we're showing them up if we cry or if we shout, or you know, whatever. So when somebody invalidates your emotion like that, it's like they're pouring kerosene onto a fire. It just blows up in your body and it gets worse and worse. So if you have emotion about the emotion, which is the main blocker, I think, to actually being able to process emotion, if you feel that it's too overwhelming for you, or you believe that if you focus on it, then it's going to get worse or it's going to get bigger, you need to know that actually it doesn't. The opposite happens. So many people sort of feel like, you know, if anybody read The Secret, which probably most people did who are listening to this, you're sort of led to believe that, you know, all you got to do is have some happy thoughts and visualize a nice fast car, and then pop, there it will be, you know. We weren't kind of taught through that book about the subconscious mind and about trauma kind of blocking all of our desires and all of that kind of thing. You know, a lot of us sort of go through the phase of thinking that if we focus on our negative emotion, then we're going to get more negative emotion. It's actually the opposite. So perhaps you fear the discomfort of the negative emotion, or you worry that you're going to get more of it. You won't if you focus on your emotion. If you start to witness your emotion and start to be fully with your emotion, that's when it's going to reduce. So if you actually fully allow the emotion because it is happening, you're no longer in denial of the reality that is unfolding in front of you. So if you choose to be with your emotion, just like if some family member was helping you be with the emotion by helping you validate that emotion, by being with you in that experience without trying to fix or change you. If you don't try to fix or change yourself and you just sit with yourself while you're fuming and raging, or while you're feeling ashamed or rejected or sad, then you turn that experience into a temporary one instead of making it a permanent one by not allowing it. So if you have chronic suffering, chronic health conditions, it is because you're not allowing the flow of the emotion. So maybe you don't allow the emotion because you judge it as weak or wrong or bad or dysfunctional or embarrassing. Maybe you tell yourself that it shouldn't be there. Maybe you make it mean things about you, like you're not good enough or that you don't matter, or that you're a failure, or you're shameful, or you're unworthy, whatever it is. So your parents, your family, your teachers, society taught you not to feel emotion for a boatload of reasons. The main one was that they just didn't know. They just didn't realize that what they were doing was incredibly damaging because it's ancestral. Their parents had done it and their parents before that. So when you were a child, you were actually the closest that you've ever been to your authentic personal truth. You were whole. So when you said or did or behaved or acted in the world in a certain way that your parents didn't approve of for whatever reason, because you relied on them to keep you safe and alive, you chose to shut parts of yourself down that they judged to be unacceptable so that they would approve of you. So you shut down in yourself what they deemed as negative in some way. So that doesn't mean that it actually was negative, what you were being or doing. Obviously what's deemed negative in one family could be deemed as a valued trait in another. So often our positive aspects, our divinity, for example, like confidence or magic or imagination, exuberance, enthusiasm, creativity, whatever your high vibe or your high energy was, often those are shut down as well. Our parents might have found it too loud or too annoying or showing off or, being too cocky or arrogant or selfish in inverted commas, for example. So as well as shutting down your authentic true expression in a multitude of ways, you also exaggerated aspects of yourself that your parents did approve of. So they might have liked certain ways that you were that might not have been the truth of who you are, really. So, this is how people end up in careers that they hate and in relationships that don't work and situations that they don't want to be in because they think they should do or say or think or be what someone else deems fit, what someone else, another person, basically, somebody external has told you to, instead of listening to your own voice. So by basically suppressing, disowning, rejecting, denying ourselves so we could fit in with our parents, which was basically to survive, because we were taught to do this, we were taught to abandon ourselves. We've moved ourselves further and further away from our own boundaries, our own limits, our own preferences, desires, choices, needs, wants. So it's socialization. We were socialized into a very warped version of our true selves to such a degree that there's not actually much left of ourselves. No wonder we're not happy. So when you look at what happened to us all, this is why we are suffering. But the thing is, if we shut ourselves down to fit in or to survive, we can undo that because there was always a decision point where we chose to do that. so that we could fit in with somebody else. So if we did that, we can undo that. So when we resist what's happening emotionally, and we do this on repeat chronically for as long as we have all been alive, for as long as we've all been doing this, the perpetual unexpressed emotion, or limiting beliefs, the repeating negative thought patterns about ourselves, they start to actually become physical in our bodies as disease. And you see that in the word dis-ease. So if you are suffering, you're on a thought loop telling yourself the story of how you don't want to feel this. You're telling yourself you should be different to how you are, or you shouldn't be like this. And you think about resisting difficult thoughts and emotions so frequently, kind of like all day, every day, that you make them permanent in your body. So the number one cause of human suffering is resistance. It's trying not to feel. It's not the feeling itself. It's not the pain itself. It's not the circumstance itself. It's the not allowing the thing that's happening in your reality. It's not allowing the reality to be happening. So, as Louise Hay would say, in order to clean the house, you have to see the dirt. So your body is your subconscious mind. Your body holds an archive of everything that has ever happened to you. You've stored it all, and you continue to store it all. If you ignore and fail to be present with what is happening emotionally, and you don't allow yourself to be human, your body resorts to developing alternative strategies that will get your attention. So if you choose not to listen to the emotion for whatever reason, all those reasons that I suggested earlier, then your body starts to shout at you through physical symptoms. So physical symptoms are your emotions and your feelings and your beliefs that you need to acknowledge that you haven't acknowledged. And it's as simple as witnessing them and allowing them to be in your body. So obviously, the majority of us have been programmed to go to our doctor when we have a symptom. So your doctor would prescribe something which then crushes your inner voice, which speaks through your body's symptoms. So myself and many other practitioners in the alternative health field would encourage you to see physical symptoms as a temporary situation for you to tune into. As soon as you hear what the body is shouting about, your symptoms will dissolve. And it happened for me. It's happened for many of my clients. It's happened for many, many millions of people all around the world, although you wouldn't know it because this information gets censored left, right, and center. So, whatever it is that you're suffering with, you could be sitting there with cancer symptoms. That physical symptom is a healing crisis. It's not a death sentence. No disease is. And it's very controversial. And, many people like myself get shut down speaking about this. I know someone that's been arrested for this. It's so frustrating because your body just needs to be heard and felt and seen and sensed. It's like a child's version of you. If you didn't listen to a child that needed to say something, that child would get louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. This is just what your body does through symptoms. Your symptoms are your body's voice. So we all need to pay attention to the emotion and the physical symptoms and retrieve the information and the treasure that it has for us. Because emotion and physical symptoms are information. So it's kind of like a language that we need to learn. All we have to do is tune into it, and it's only us that can tune into our own symptoms. So I help people, I facilitate people to tune into their symptoms, but I can't tune into their symptoms from my perspective. I can only help people do that for themselves. The emotion, the physical symptom, once you sit with them and you allow them to flow, you will be delivered with truth bomb after truth bomb after truth bomb. There is information held in the cells of your body that will be revealed to you as soon as you start to pay attention to what is really happening. So the symptoms are a physical manifestation of your unprocessed negative thinking and negative emotion, and your unwillingness to express what is really going on for you because you don't want to admit it, or because you have beliefs about what that would mean. So it isn't the negative emotion itself or the physical disease itself or the negative circumstances that are causing your suffering. It is your learned resistance to the negative emotion, your resistance to the disease, your resistance to the circumstance, your resistance to the suffering that is actually perpetuating it. So suffering is when something is happening and it's happening and it's happening and you're stuck in a loop and nothing changes and nothing changes and you're stuck. It's because of your resistance. So if you don't let yourself have the emotional experience or the physical experience in the first place because you're covering it up with medications, or you're just suppressing it or avoiding it or denying it because you judge it as wrong or bad, or whatever your reason is, you then don't ever get to process it. You don't receive the information that your body has. You don't get the epiphanies. You don't get the truth bombs. You don't get to deal with it or acknowledge it. You don't get to heal it. You don't get to let it go. You don't get closure. You don't move on. You don't grow, and you don't succeed. So this is what the systems want for us. This is how everything is set up. You know, the food industry, even the pet food industry, the health service. So none of this stuff goes away when you deny that it's there. You just hide it from yourself. You're holding your pain in place instead. So you're protecting it and you're maintaining the negative stuckness. You're ensuring its survival if you suppress it. And then it's just going to remain in your experience. So when you resist your emotion, you are hiding the way out of it. So you hide the way out of the mess from yourself. Validating your emotion holds the answers. So your resistance is causing you to be in denial that what is happening is happening. It makes sense that you would do this because you don't want these negative situations in your life, and we're all human. But everybody needs to get on the road. So it's likely that you're chronically trying not to have them, which is what resistance is. So trying not to be in the reality that you are actually in is not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to make things worse. So you're likely chronically trying not to have the experience you're having by not really admitting to the reality that you're in. So your resistance is causing you to get stuck, feeling that you can't change anything at all. So tune into your emotion. It's here for you. It's the way out. The only way out is in. What you resist persists. So move forward with the full picture. That's what I would suggest. So there are a number of strategies that you can use to heal yourself. I would highly recommend EFT tapping, which absolutely saved my life. I cannot emphasize enough how I had profound shifts of consciousness literally as soon as I started to tap. And it really, really worked for me. And, you know, some people say, oh, it's not going to work for me. But if you have a central nervous system, which I think you do, then it will help. I've put a link actually on the channel for EFT Universe because they share very generously I'm not quite sure what they call it, but like it's a whole folder full of the process how to do EFT. And I think it's a very good resource. It's a free resource. It isn't necessarily the way that everybody does EFT, but it's a good starting point. I would get your hands on that if you can, so you can download that, and it's free. So the link's there. I would highly recommend Dr. Bradley Nelson's books, The Emotion Code and The Body Code, because this is basically like, if you learn to muscle test, you can fly. So basically muscle testing, there's lots of different ways to do it. And you are able to then speak to your body's consciousness. So you're able to speak to your subconscious mind, and you're able to figure out what's going on that you can't access from your conscious mind. So if you sort of look at your subconscious and your conscious mind, your subconscious is like 90% of what's going on for you. So we've only really, from our conscious standpoint, got access to 10% of that. So our body has a consciousness of its own. So if you muscle test, you can learn to ask your body questions, and then you can get yes, no responses. So you get quite an expert at asking the questions. So if you can muscle test, you can use the emotion code and you can use the body code. So that's basically a modality where you can ask about certain diseases that you have, or situations that you have in your life, certain relationships. The world is your oyster if you can muscle test. You can ask basically your subconscious mind, do I have trapped emotion that is causing me to have this problem? And your body will say yes, because there's always trapped emotion. And then you can muscle test to find out what that trapped emotion is. So you can use the emotion code chart, and there's column A and column B, and then there's 6 rows. So you can basically say, is it in an even row? Is it in column A? And then you can get to the emotions in each box, and you can find out what are the trapped emotions that you have in your body that are causing you to be attracting these terrible men, or attracting this problem that you keep having stuck on a loop. So you can set yourself free. It is absolutely incredible. It's an incredible journey. It took me a while to sort of get the muscle testing right. Muscle testing itself isn't hard to do, but it's actually learning to trust your responses, which is the hard thing. If you have trauma and programming connected to not basically trusting yourself, then it is going to be harder for sure. Also, obviously, you can learn to use inner child work and parts work, and many other forms of quantum healing. You can learn to do that yourself. I can help people with sessions to do facilitate healing for you, to teach you how to muscle test. I can help you do any of this stuff if you would want that. There's another like incredible resource called the Gene Keys, and I don't actually hear it talked about much, but there's a huge community around the Gene Keys, and I've put also on the channel a link to get a free hologenetic profile. So this is like absolutely mind-boggling. So this is based on, it's actually in line with human design and the I Ching. What it is it's based on astrology. So when we were born at that certain time on planet Earth, the cosmos, all the stars were aligned in a certain way. And it's kind of like, astrology is basically like a photograph, isn't it, of where everything was, all the planets and everything at your time of birth. So basically what you do to get your free profile, and they're not like going to steal your data or anything. I know that you might have resistance to putting your information in. It's not, nothing bad will happen as a result of doing that, only good things. You basically have to put in your name, your town of birth, your date of birth, your time of birth. I think that might be it. And then I don't think you have to put your real name if you didn't want to do that. I think maybe your email address as well, I'm not sure. They have an amazing newsletter as well. They send out called the Pulse, which is basically the gene key that the collective is currently working on, and it is always like the most synchronistic thing ever. So basically, the gene keys, there are 64 gene keys, and when we came into this life, we chose apparently to come to learn about certain ones of these. So we have very specific ones that are relevant to us, that we are kind of working towards in our life. So we all have the 64 gene keys. We're all working on the 64 of them, but we have a certain number of relevant ones that we will see in our hologenetic profile. So as soon as you clap eyes on your hologenetic profile, you would probably find it looks a bit complicated, and but I would persevere with it because there's lots of different layers to it, and you're not going to get it all straight away. But when I first looked at mine, I was absolutely blown away because it's like it knows you, and it makes me think of, you know, anybody that was alive in the 70s. This is your life. You know, you open the Gene Keys book and you look at the chapters that are that apply to you, and it's you. It's like you. It's about you. So, for example, each gene key has a shadow and it has a siddhi, which is the mastery. So it has the polarity. And in the middle, there's the gift. So there's a shadow, there's a gift in the middle, there's the mastery of that. So you're on the spectrum somewhere. So, for example, I have in my hologenetic profile, gene key 55, which is the shadow of victimization, leading to the gift and the siddhi of freedom. So that's kind of interesting that I am an emotional freedom techniques practitioner, and that I'm mainly interested in freedom and working towards freedom and helping other people work towards freedom. And I've been doing this for like 12 years. It's interesting that I've got gene key 55 right in the center of my chart. There's also lines and there's different layers, which once you look into, it kind of explains how the course of your life has occurred in the way it has, because it's actually written into my gene keys that I would be working in the systems. So that's like absolutely amazing. You know, I worked for the NHS and I worked as a teacher in education, and I even worked in corporate systems. I mean, it's bonkers. But I also have like loads of other really difficult shadows like limitation and struggle and codependence and like all sorts of like really terrible ones. And I have had a really difficult time. I also have, interestingly, doubt twice. So if you have, I can't remember what number that one is, but basically the shadow is doubt. The siddhi, the mastery of that, is truth. So I have truth twice. So I have truth and freedom, which is how my life has panned out. Like all I'm interested in is truth and freedom, and like everything I do is like I'm moving towards that. So it's so interesting that like this has come out of my astrology, you know, the time of my birth, the place of my birth, like all of that. Like who knew? And you know, I heard about the gene keys and I bought the book and I left it sitting there for literally 6 months because I was so kind of in resistance, because I knew how powerful it was going to be, I think on a subconscious level. So I left it sitting there kind of staring at me every day. And I was just thinking, why don't I go and start reading that book? But please don't do that. Please go and open the book immediately and download your hologenetic profile, because basically this is a healing modality where you heal through synchronicity and contemplation. It is the most beautiful way to heal. And it's about you. It's so personal and it's so beautiful. And they have there's millions of like people on YouTube sharing videos about their perspective on gene keys. Whatever your gene keys pop up as, there is so much stuff online for free. Like you don't have to pay anything once you've bought the book. I mean, there's loads of other things that go with it, loads of other things that you can pay for, like courses to do and what have you. But it's like something that you will study for the rest of your life. You'll be hooked. And you basically read a chapter of the Gene Keys and then kind of set the intentions in the universe. Like, I'd like to start working on this shadow, please. I'd like to move into the gift and the city of this because I'm so done with struggle. I'm so done with limitation. I'm so done with victimization or codependence or whatever yours happen to be. And then the universe will move mountains to bring you the information that you need to bust that shadow. So, you know, it takes a while, but like all you have to do is get on the road, and the universe wants you to heal. Your subconscious mind wants you to heal. It's an absolutely amazing and beautiful experience, the Gene Keys. I would highly, highly recommend that. So you can do EFT for free. You can do the emotion and the body code for free. You can learn quantum healing techniques for free. You can find out your Gene Keys, which are basically you. One other thing that I would recommend most highly is to get yourself as many willing witnesses as you can in your life. Every single client I have who sits on the chair in front of me and they think that they are the most broken person in the world and that everyone else has got it right and that they're the only one suffering with the thing that they've got. And most people's suffering is perpetuated by feeling alone in their pain. So if you can be a person who is willing to witness the pain of other people and you will invite other people to witness your pain, it really is a way of accelerating your own progress and the progress of the people that you love. It's what we all need. And unfortunately, the programming runs so deep, you know, saying to our kids, you know, there's no need to cry, telling people there's no need to feel like that. Yes, there is. There are reasons to cry and there are reasons to feel the way that we feel. And all we want is for someone to be with us while we feel that, so that we can not feel even more broken in the process. Yeah, so I just basically I wanted to share like all these millions of different ways to heal. Something else I wanted to share sort of along the same lines, like because obviously all the systems are set up to keep us failing and suffering. Like I've started to treat my own water, because if you think about it, water is, what is it, like 80% of your body. That might not be the right percentage, but we are predominantly made up of water. And I found a really amazing bunch of people. I've forgotten his name. Harry, maybe Joyce can help me. I can't remember his surname. But anyway, he has a company called oh God, what is it now? Was Only Results Count, I think. Yeah, I've shared it on the channel anyway. Only Results Count. So basically I've got I put tap water into a distiller. So the distiller collects the steam from the tap water, so I don't have to ingest any of the horrible crap that is in our tap water. And then that distilled water I then put into a vortexer, which this probably sounds bonkers. I then put the distilled water into a vortexer, which makes the water come alive. So it puts electrons into the water. I then put that alive distilled water into a hydrogen bottle, and then I hydrogenate the water. So I have drinking water. I mean, it takes bloody long time to get drinking water in my house, like 20 minutes, half an hour. But it's absolutely mind-blowing, and I've watched videos where people have had their blood tested before and after. Like, you test your blood before and your blood cells are all like, oh my God, like I'm so sluggish. And then after that, your blood cells are having a party and they're swinging from the rafters. So, and I mean, my teenager today, like she thinks I'm mad, but she doesn't. She just thinks it's bonkers. Like she'd rather just go to the tap and get the water, which is what she does when she's at her dad's. But basically she came downstairs and she was all lethargic this morning. So I gave her some distilled electrolyzed hydrogenated water, and she was literally bouncing in 2 minutes after drinking it. So I would recommend not drinking tap water and getting proper water into the cells of your body. I mean, I did drink bottled water for a long time, and that's better than tap water, but it's full of microplastics and stuff as well. So, and also the plastic is a horror show for the planet. So, yeah, I would go and look at Harry. I think it's Harry Rhodes. Is that right, Joyce? I don't know. That might not be his name. But anyway, have a look at Only Results Count, and you can find all his stuff on there for water treatment as well, which will radically improve your life. So I'm going to stop talking because it's 7 o'clock. Would anybody like to contribute or say hello or ask anything?
Just come in, Jenny. I'm a bit slow to respond to buttons on my phone.
That's all right. Can you remember his name, Joyce?
Yeah, it's Harry Rhodes.
Oh, I did get it right, yeah.
His website, Rhodes, as in Rhodes in Greece, Rhodes.
Yeah.
And his website is Only Results Count. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And it is amazing. I went to one of his events and I had my blood tested, which is basically just a straightforward blood test, the usual one, prick on the finger and it puts your blood onto a slide and puts it under a microscope, and it's all his laptop, so you can see it. You can see your blood under the microscope on the screen, on the computer screen, and he'll then give you just a small amount in a shot glass of the distilled water that's been put in the vortex that you've been. It's like a cup, isn't it? I bought one off him. It's a plastic drinking cup with a copper vortex inside. It's got magnets on the outside of it as well. And then so you put your water in there and switch it on, and it spins the water around in like a vortex, and it's supposed to structure the water. And then so it just give you a small shot of that, and then take another blood test, put that under the microscope. The difference is incredible.
Well, I mean, it's only a small amount as well. Like that, it's not even a full glass of water.
It's within seconds.
Yeah.
Because in the first slide, I mean, he said my blood was in a pretty good condition, but there were, 1 or 2 small clusters of blood cells. But as soon as I'd taken within seconds after I'd taken the vortex water, the restructured water, they all separated. And of course, when they're all separate, all the blood cells, that is, when they're all separated, they're functioning at optimum level. So they can carry the oxygen around your body more easily, and whatever other functions your blood cells have. So yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Joyce. Anybody else like to say anything?
Hi, Jane. I've just found a few books by Richard Rudd.
Brilliant.
Which I've shared on the station group. So there's a few ebooks there that people can download and read. There's the Gene Keys book, the 64 Ways Personal Contemplations.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so miraculous.
With Gene Keys.
Yeah, it's such an amazing community, and they do like a thing, like a sort of podcast on the Clubhouse app, and there are people on there from all around the world, and it's kind of like this. You can raise your hand and you can just step in and have a chat, and they have themed ones. It might be about this gene key a certain day, and then this thing another day. But it's just so lovely to hear all these voices from all around the world, people that share something in common with you. Like you've all got these terrible stories about having this same jinky shadow, and it's such a beautiful way of having willing witnesses. It's absolutely perfect for healing. It's beautiful. So thanks for that, Andy. I think like any way into that community is perfect. I'd highly recommend.
Well, if anybody's interested, they've now got a selection of free ebooks there that they can go and have a read of, and it might take them down a path they never even thought of.
Yeah. It's really intriguing having a look at your own hologenetic profile, especially if you've never sort of looked into astrology or anything. Because I've never really looked into astrology much. I kind of have a little bit, but I know some people are really into it, and I do sort of feel quite drawn to look into it a bit more. But yeah, that's another thing that people got taken away from that is highly relevant. Most random Joes walking around today would think that astrology was just made up, kind of, but it's ancient wisdom right there.
Yeah, I think that the problem there is that, especially in the 20th century, it's been sort of marginalised to sort of columns in the newspaper and TV shows with wacky presenters saying, "Oh yeah, I can't remember the names now," but they've sort of been pushed to one side and made fun of and poked fun of.
Yeah.
So that when anybody mentions it now, it's like people just, "Oh yeah, it doesn't mean anything." If breakfast telly's got a woman on or a chap on that's doing it, it can't be that important and it can't be that serious.
Like
it's trivialized and ridiculed, like most things that got any validation, really.
Anybody that said anything sort of like negative about astrology or astronomy or the linking of the planets when you were born and everything, I just simply point out to them or ask them the simple initial question: does the moon affect the tides of the ocean? Invariably, everybody will say yes, because it does, and that's what they've been taught.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, all right, so you're suggesting then that there is a planetary body, the moon, that affects a mass of water, the ocean, through, whatever positioning of the moon is. And it's like, well, yeah, that's why we have high tides, low tides, right. Well, in that case, as you pointed out earlier on, Jen, that the human body is 80%, 90%, whatever percent, it's a high margin of water. So therefore, it then suggests that even if it was just the moon, it's going to have an effect on various different groups of people at the same time, wherever the position of the moon is, just like it does on the ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
Technically, we're just droplets of water, aren't we? In that sort of comparison.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean,
you step it forward to the planets themselves and where they all are, the alignments of them, and how it has an effect when you're born. So, yeah, it's all of a sudden, they sort of like the cogs start turning, and you can see them.
Well, if you think about it, like, it doesn't get much bigger than a planet, does it? I mean, the gravitational pull of a planet, there is nothing bigger than a planet. It's going to affect us, and they're all moving around. And like, I've worked in a hospital and I've worked in a school, and like when there's a full moon, things are not normal. Like they're really not normal at all in a hospital and in a school. So I mean, yeah, you kind of like you live through it yourself as well. Like you feel the energy of it, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And so you kind of sort of, when you explain this to people that sort of mock or trivialize astrology and the effects of the planets on the human body, mind, and spirit, and it's like, well, there you go. The truth is there. You're just not equating it from one aspect to another.
Yeah, totally. What were you going to say, Joyce?
Well, I was going to say that it's by religions as well, isn't it? I mean, I know my Sunday school teacher used to warned me against astrology. But also regarding what you're saying about the moon and the effects it has on people, it's a well-known fact, isn't it, that women's menstrual cycles synchronise when they're living in close proximity. I've experienced that a number of times in my life, you know, where I've been living with a group of women or working with a group of women, and our menstrual cycles are synchronised. And then I used to work with people with learning disabilities in a living position, living job. And I didn't really keep an eye on the moon cycle then at that time, but every month when we were due for a full moon, we could tell, because the majority of the people that I was working with and that we were living with, they used to go absolutely, they just used to get hyper, you know, and that's really interesting as well, because the word used to call mental institutions lunatic asylums. Because people have become more, you know, anybody that was sort of on that spectrum, special needs or mental health, have become more hyperactive and crazy, you know. So yeah, the word for moon is lunar, isn't it? So yeah, am I making sense? I don't know if I'm putting it across very well.
No, that does. It does make.
Yeah,
it makes total sense. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. So I would recommend that highly as well to anybody that wanted to have a look. So yeah, we're all suffering in some way or another, and there's loads of things that we can do to step out of the loop, because it is a loop, and it's a loop by design, and there's no shame in suffering. Like, you know, it was designed this way for us all to be suffering, and it's amazing that we're all still alive. It really is. But I would say that any of these modalities that I've mentioned today, and having people around you that can witness your pain and can listen to you express that, and vice versa, like, these are all ways of stepping out of the loop. And all you have to do is bring change into the loop, and then you can start to build up some momentum going in a different direction. So I hope that's helped everybody. Yeah, anybody else want to say anything? Otherwise, I'll stop the recording, I think. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming on the live, and thank you for listening to the recording too. And good luck with your self-healing, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Still there?
Yeah.
You're chalking up these shows, aren't you, Jen?
Yeah, that's 9, I think, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I hope I've counted them right.
You've said it in. So yeah, you're nearly in double figures.
Yeah, I know. It's good, isn't it? I'm glad.
Over 2 months.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm really like feeling the benefit of committing to something and seeing it through. Because, you know, I do commit to things, you know, but it's something that I want to get better at. And yeah, me and Tim are starting a podcast as well, and then I might be starting one with another therapy friend of mine as well, sort of in the pipeline. So I think I need to have regular things. I think I just need, because I'm quite scattered, I need to have things regular. Do you know what I mean? I need to get into a routine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do. Well, it's grounding, isn't it? So on Monday I do this, on Tuesday I do that. You know, it just makes sense. I think everyone needs a routine, really.
A little one. Sometimes if a routine, it's like anything. It's good for you in small doses, but when you overindulge, it can usually mean that it's detrimental to either your spiritual, mental, or physical.
Yeah. It's a fine line, isn't it? Because, like, it can, you know, you don't want to be military about anything. You don't want to have a regime going for yourself, but at the same time, it's sort of, yeah, getting
Well,
disciplined.
it's like I always talk about the fact that I have a coffee routine.
Mm.
And I know every morning when I wake up, I know that I'm going to get up, sort myself out, sort the cat out, sort the dog out. While I'm doing that, the kettle's boiling, and then I make myself my first cup of coffee. It's ground coffee, it's not plastic coffee. It's not like instant coffee, it's proper ground coffee. So I have that massive instant buzz